Hello and welcome back to the virtual classroom. Once again, we are in week 6 and I am going to state this right now at the beginning of the video. You are going to watch this entire video right to the end, and you are probably going to watch it more than once because in week 6, we do not have a new case or quiz. Instead, we have a 20% test, and that's what this video is all about. I do these with every version of the course. We always have a test prep video, and this video is going to break down everything that's on the test. All about the test. There's a few things that are steps that are on the test content that aren't exactly like what we did on the cases. So I'm actually going to individually show you some of these skills in the test prep video. There is a bit of new learning for week 6 still, although you will not have a new case or quiz. It's just a few steps that are variations on stuff we've done before, different places in the same menus. As I've mentioned a few times in this course, that happens a lot. That's with quiz questions and stuff. So let's talk about what the test is worth. And again, I'm going to keep reminding you this throughout the video. This is going to be one of the shorter videos you're going to have this semester, and you do want to watch this whole thing. There are going to be some serious breadcrumbs, gifts, if you will, that I'm going to hand you in this video. So let's talk about the test first and what it's all about. So Test 1 is worth 20% of your final mark. It will be done in the form of a SAM case, but you only get one attempt. And you will not get the mark right away. Your professor is going to post the mark a little bit later, usually within a couple days. And a reminder here, if for some reason you had your unpaid account and then you created another account when you paid for your SAM, which you shouldn't be doing, make sure that you're not mixing up files from different accounts. That is the type of stuff that flags students for cheating, and you will not be able to submit your test file, which is a much bigger deal than not submitting the weekly file. These have already been the security settings this semester anyway, so you should be used to that by now. The expectation is that you know what to use and when, and I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second before we go to the next examples. There are some steps with new skills, and I'm going to teach you those in this video. Very, very basic new skills. Same as always. Always save, always close, and if you close, it automatically saves. This is not the kind of test where you want to be turning in a file without saving. And then, of course, 2 monitors. I know a lot of you are watching this test prep video where from week to week, the students that show up for the face-to-face classes probably don't watch the videos as much, but for the test prep video, every student in every section, including our face-to-face sections, are going to be required to watch this to prepare for the test. And if you don't, hey, you're going to get a better mark from watching this video. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm only bringing up the 2 monitors thing for the students that are working at home. Everybody on campus is going to have 2 monitors anyway. Some of your professors will be printing out the instructions for the case and the test cover sheet. I don't generally do that. I'm trying to save paper these days. I'm not criticizing one way or the other. But the reason I feel comfortable with that is because we have 2 monitors in the lab. If you're at home, you will have some time to print this stuff out if you need it, but if you happen to have an extra monitor, it really helps when you're under a time constraint. You will be timed on this test, and if you run out of time and do not submit, you will get a 0. You must be able to submit your own file and get it done in time. And of course, as I mentioned, there is no new case or quiz during a test week. You just need to get the test done according to the scheduling your professor has given you. So before we move on to the skills and all that stuff, and this video is not going to be long, not even 15 minutes. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of scheduling. My face-to-face students, you all need to be in class taking the test. If you require extra time or are entitled to extra time, this is something you need to inform your professor about, and you will be able to take it in a testing center on campus in a classroom lab. But none of you are going to just get to take this at home. My online students who have been watching these videos for weeks and you're in an online section, your professor will report to you before the test week how the test is going to be administered. Sometimes it's in different like groups of people that take it at different times during the same day. Sometimes it's spread. Usually it's in about the middle of the week, toward the end of the week. But I'm not getting into scheduling in this video is applicable to everyone who is taking this test. It's the same test for everybody, just with different numbers and kind of steps scrambled up. So there's not like copies of it going around, but everyone's test will be scheduled in a different way because all the face-to-face sections have to take their test in class in week 6. You need to show up for your lecture. So your professor tells you what's going on. Then you go to your lab and you take your test. There are no other options. If you can't take it, you better let them know in advance, and you'll probably get put into another section. For my online students, your professor will again have custom scheduling. You'll be notified that the week before, maybe at the beginning of the test week, and you'll be told when to be online to do your test. So the scheduling is different, but the test for everybody will contain these special new skills. But before we jump into this, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, I just want to make sure you remember all the basics. So this is a test week. So that doesn't mean that on FOL, you don't have the standard FOL content item, which I've already gone into. So FOL content, week 6. Here's a list of stuff that's going to be on the test. And the list I just showed you in that PowerPoint slide is also listed here. And I'm making a note here that this is similar to some of the stuff you ran into on quizzes that weren't on cases, where it's like, oh, we were in this menu, so here's a different thing in this menu. They're very simple steps, except maybe for the borders, but I'm going to show you how to do that in this particular video. And then I'm also going to show you how the test that you're getting in terms of the language used in the case varies slightly from the case that you're used to. We'll do that right before we start doing the examples. And it's one capstone case, one submission allowed. So all the basic stuff is in here. And even when you start the test, you're going to be given a cover sheet that covers all the basics of how the test is administered. So this is going to be sent to you for the online students probably before you start. This will be released to everyone in my face-to-face sections like well before you start, so you can kind of look it over. And you can pause the video. Here's the top half. You can pause the video and read that. And here's the bottom half. You can pause the video and read that. And there may be some very subtle changes to this from semester to semester. I know I am going to add in a comment about one of the steps on the test, just something for students to watch out for. We're always very fair about this stuff. And the better you're prepared, like those of you that are watching this video, the better you're going to do. So you'll be given lots of information about the test as you're going into it via FOL. And via that test cover sheet, which will be posted on FOL before your test. And then, Sam, you have to make sure, let me just log out here. You have to make sure, and I just went into my dummy student account, my fake student account, just to show you what's going to happen. If you go in and you don't have your Sam paid for, this is not going to be something that's going to be able to happen like minutes before the test. Unless you go to the bookstore and buy it, which we prefer you do anyway. So you're going to go in and you're going to see this that we covered in the week 3 video, like it's time to get your key code. And then you're going to say, oh, I don't have the money, and you're going to enter later, and you're not going to have access to the test. So you got to make sure your key code's paid for and you're ready to go. So that concludes the first portion of the video, kind of basically breaking down how the test is going to be, leading to this final item, which is to show you what I mean by what was that? What was that I put on that slide? Right here, going back to this. You know what to do and you know when to do it. Okay. So that is the expectation. And here's an example of that. And I'm going to stick around to the end of this video. I'm reminding you again, I'm going to give you major breadcrumbs here. We're about to start right now. And after we're done with that list of items, that's on that next slide there. So we're going to start into this list. We're going to get into VLOOKUP, and I'm going to basically hand you the keys to the kingdom on the VLOOKUP function for the test. But first, I want to make sure you understand what I mean by knowing what to do and when to do it. Here's what you're used to. Select this range and then add this border, blah, 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 blah. Here's what the test will say. Hey, go to this cell where you see the abbreviation and then go to the end of the table, including the total row, and add a. It's just giving you a little bit less hand-holding. That's it. It's just not specifically giving you the range, because at this point in the course, and this is part of the test, you should be able to look at this sheet, and trust me, you will be able to. You'll be able to look at the sheet and say, and here's one of my examples that I'm using. Okay, well, they're just saying, start here with the abbreviation. It didn't say to pick up the headings. Start here and come over here and pick up the whole table. And if there's a total row, you're going to get the total row too. They're just not giving you the range. That's it. That's the only difference. All right, so be aware of that and be prepared for that. And you can watch this video as many times as you want to get yourself ready and just kind of go back and flip through the steps we've covered on the previous cases. And when you get to something that seems a little more involved for you, or you forget where to go in the menu, go back in Excel and review that one. That's really the only way you can study. You can practice with the quizzes too. That's not going to hurt. Alrighty, so let's get started with this list of very minor items that maybe we didn't do the precise exact thing in a case or on a quiz. And we're about 10 minutes into the video now, and so now is where we start the breadcrumbs. Get ready. So row height, we've done column width. No problem there. You know probably where it is. Row height is in the same place from the Home tab in that Format menu over here. And always remember that if your screen is smaller than mine, you may see things a little bit differently. Like we're going to use word wrap in a minute. You see how it's taken away wrap text, but it still shows the icon. So be prepared for that. I know a lot of you in the lab have those square, smaller monitors. So I'm here in just a chunk of a previous case we had. The content of the worksheet is irrelevant. I'm just showing you examples of things you might be asked to do, one of which is row height. So somebody in here changed the size of the font to be quite large, and this is what I did ahead of time here, and the row just wasn't big enough. So you can drag this down like this with your mouse by clicking and dragging, but that's probably not going to be the way you're going to want to do it on a SAM case or a SAM case test, because they're going to want a precise height or a precise width, or they're going to want it auto fit. So like we did on the case in week 5, you can highlight one row, you can highlight multiple rows, you can highlight a column, multiple columns. Let's say I want to change row 4. Go to row 4, go to Format, same place where we did the column stuff. We did specific widths and auto fit. You can do specific row heights. Let's say I wanted 22 and just hit enter and it's done. Or you can do auto fit from there too. And you can do it with the mouse as well. I think with SAM, it's always safer to do it that way. So that covers the first item that it's possible you may have never done before the test. So it's not like I'm 95% of what's on this test. You have done it, some of which, numerous times on cases. These are just a few little, steps that snuck in there. And that's why you get to learn a bit of new content in week 6, even with the test. And that's what this video is showing you. So keep watching. Wrap text. So let's say in this cell, they said, make the column bigger, or something like make the column big. And it was bigger than that. You had lots of room in there, and you said trend line. Can't even type. You had to add some text in there. Looks like this. And even if the column's bigger, it doesn't mean the text is going to properly wrap through like you'd want it to, because you have had some cases where I think there was text wrapped, you just didn't have to do it. Sitting on the cell, you can very easily do this by clicking the wrap text button, and it's done. Now, you can see here that's still not enough room for it, and if that needed to be dealt with, I'm sure the step would tell you that, but that's just an example of wrap text. Now, I think it was just as fair to throw a few in there on the test like that you hadn't done, because the test is open resource, and part of this course is teaching you to be resourceful while you're using Excel. No course could ever teach every single thing you can do in Excel without being like 3 or 4 courses combined. But what do we do if we can't do something? We don't start flipping through cases to find it. The quickest way is probably going to be to use the help menu or to ask Google where to do it, and it will have structured results telling you where to go in the menu to do this in Excel. But I'm showing you ahead of time, so that's done. So that's wrap text. Next on the docket, we have borders. So this is the first one in this, the only one in this list that's really remotely tricky. And it's because SAM isn't the best at saying which border, and there's a bunch of different choices in terms of borders. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you that when you go to do borders, you will do this from the border drop-down menu here. Okay, now, if you don't have an automatic option, like I've shown you in previous videos for previous cases, if you don't see what you want, go here, pull out the dialog box here, go to the More option, and you'll find it in there. So under here, you can pull this out right here, and you can go to Border, or you can simply get into the dialog box by going down here and going to More Borders. So there will be a step on the test, which, by the way, is this exact step. Okay, and it wants you to put borders all around the cell within a certain range. And it wants you to make them white. And there is no automatic option for that. So what you're going to do is you're going to highlight the range, whatever that may be. I'm just picking this range because this is just an example. And you're going to go into borders, and you're not going to find what you want here. Now, How is this fair, Mike? We never did borders before. Yeah, but we've done every single thing other than borders from the font menu. It's just another thing from the font menu where you click on what you want. The reason I'm showing you this one is because it's a little trickier than that. Okay, so with the range highlighted, and you see that you're not going to be able to do this using one of the automatic options, you go into more borders. And once you're into more borders, you're going to see that the range you highlighted, and this may or may not happen on the test. The first thing you want to do is just turn everything off. So the way you turn borders on here is just by clicking where you want borders. You can do angles through, you can do the middle line through. So just turn them all off by clicking on it. Well, don't do what I did. I just turned a million borders on and off. Get them all off. Because whatever's already on there is not going to be right, because they want you to first set the border and the color, and then you put on what you want to do. So if they don't specify, let it's thick, thin, dashed, or whatever, the default border for any SAM case will be this one, the bottom one on the left side here. So you choose that border, then you choose the color, and then you go and click them on. So as you're clicking them on, you can't even see them, but they are there. So what you need to do is pay attention to these boxes here. So outline it. So turn it on so it's outlined, do the middle line, and then turn that off. I must have clicked that by accident. So yeah, so you want top, bottom, center, left, middle, right. You want all those checked. So this is a very tricky step. And the reason it's tricky is because most of the time people just use the default borders. And I would have liked that to be the only, but I do like that there's a step on there like this, because now everybody that watched the test prep video will get it. So I'm basically giving you all the settings in here, and you can't see anything because it's white. And then you click OK, and it puts these borders on. You could see them now up against the blue. And the reason you would do this is because you have an area shaded probably with one solid color, and they want to add white borders in there. So again, if you're going to do it this way, you need to make sure you understand that it's just the way Excel works. When you have to click the proper ones on, and it's hard to do with your mouse. You can see them turning on and off when you do it, because you want to see them like you did when I first showed you the example. But that's how it's going to work. You're going to have these three on, those three on. That's every side of every cell. And you have to have it white before you turn them on. If you turn them all on and then change it white, the ones you put on there were black. It's really... So just follow the guidance of this video. You can even pull this up during the test. You just can't listen to the audio if you're not working at home. So that's the step on borders. Then there'll be another step on borders that's just like add a thin bottom border or something, and it's totally default. So you can go here and you can choose, it might be thick. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the default go-to settings. I believe it is. I should make sure of that before I say that. Like, I know it's thin border. Oh, of course. Wait a second. So what they're saying, what they're asking you to do on the next step on the test is just a standard top border. So you go do standard top border with the default color, which means you can pull it from the default menu, and that's it. It's not called thin border. And again, that's because of the way the language in this case works. And that's why I'm showing you these two steps, because if you go into more borders, you can see, and if I change the color back to black, that's the thinnest one. That's a solid line. That's just standard thin border. But that is the default border if you just choose top border. So, and borders, this only matters because it's a SAM case. You guys can go, now that you've learned borders, you can go and pick and do whatever you want. You can even use the drawing tool to draw them out. I think the way I've shown you here in the test prep video is probably the best way to handle it. Conditional formatting top bottom rules, super simple. You've done a bunch of conditional formatting. If I wanted to highlight like the top 10% or top 20 or something like that in this range, I go to conditional formatting. Instead of choosing data bars or highlight cell rules, I want to highlight the top 10%. I go here, I do that. If I don't want that, I choose a different option here. If the option I see isn't there, remember, always go to custom, and then you make it however the SAM step says to make it. Don't forget that even if you screw it up when you put it in, you can even go back and edit it. While you're sitting on it, you can go to Manage Rules. It'll tell you the rules on the selected cells, or you could do the whole sheet. And you can go in and edit, okay? And you can go Format and Customize. So don't get stumped by the fact there's a conditional formatting step that asks you to do something slightly different than what you've done before. It's still just as easy. So that would be there in the top bottom rules. And then deleting a worksheet. I know at the beginning of the course, we were playing around in the worksheet tab. We changed the tab color. We changed the tab name. We never did delete a sheet. But if you wanted to delete a worksheet, you would go into it in the same menu, right click, and simply delete. So there's a bunch of steps like that are just like you're going into the same menu and clicking on something that you've probably seen before, you just never clicked on it. Except for borders. That's a bit tricky, and that's why I spent some more time on that. And then finally, there's another comment here. Watch out for the data labels for charts. I actually covered this in my chart video in week 4, where I showed you that if you turn the data labels on and off, if there were categories already on there, when you turn the data labels on and off, it would remove the categories. So this is one where there will be, even though the test language is a little bit, it requires you to think a bit more than the other cases, the pictures will still be there at the bottom. So you can go down and refer to the pictures. So if you get into a situation where you haven't turned the data labels on and off in the right order, and then at the end of the step, you see you have the categories still in there and they shouldn't be in there, or vice versa, you just simply go back to data labels and bring up the panel and turn the things on and off that you should have on and off. You just got to match the picture and you'll be fine. And there'll be a note on this as well in the test cover sheet. So almost done here. And I did want to definitely get this done in 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give you, close. We're close. I'm going to give you a massive, massive breadcrumb here. All right, so, and this is something I meant to teach in week 3, and I never got it in there. Professor Quinn, who is one of our best, he goes down in history as one of the greatest Excel instructors ever. He has this acronym, not really an acronym, it's the 3 W's. It's an abbreviation of 3 words that basically guide you through what you need to think about when you're doing a lookup function. What you're looking up, where you're looking for it, and why you're looking it up. So what you're looking up, that's gonna usually be very close to where you're putting the function. It'll be like an ID number or an abbreviation of some sort that you're gonna find somewhere else in a table full of data that makes a reference to that thing. That's the where you're looking up. And why you're looking it up is to determine, that determines like basically the scenario answer for, what you want to do once you find it. Now, that's a really good thing to teach you right now, because when you had the lookup function on the case in week 3, it said in the steps, hey, go to this cell, do a VLOOKUP, do this, make this absolute, do blah, blah, blah. And that's all been left out for the case on the test. Okay, why is there a quote there? That should be a colon. However, what I am going to tell those of you that watch the video to the end here is that the VLOOKUP on the test is flat out almost identical to the VLOOKUP we did in week 3. So you remember in week 3, we had several items we had to deal with. We were making the lookup value absolute. The test will not tell you to do that. It will expect you to know that. We were making the table that we were looking up absolute. The test will not tell you that. It will expect you to know that. Then we were finding the thing we were looking up in a certain column in the range we were looking for it in. Then we did something pretty neat. We copied the function down, and when you copy the function down, it will keep all that stuff absolute, and it does not scroll through and change the column index number for you. And then you were to go back and fix that and update it for each of the appropriate columns. The VLOOKUP on the test is exactly like the VLOOKUP on the week 3 case. Boom. I hope you watch the video till the end, because if you can handle that one, you're going to do the one on the test the same exact way. So don't say we're not trying to help you guys out. Granted, it is a little bit different the way we're providing you the language. We're expecting you to use your brains a bit more and say, oh yeah, I know what function I need to do this with. But if you forget the ins and outs of it, you could literally go back to the file you submitted for the week 3 case and just look at what you were doing there versus what you're going to have to do on the test. And you're probably going to be successful with the VLOOKUP function, which does carry a little bit more weight than some of the other steps on the test. So thank you for watching. Please note all the slightly different stuff we're going to have on the test that may or may not have been covered directly in the cases or quizzes. Was not with this list here. And except this last thing, this was just something to watch out for. And then Make sure to review the week 3 VLOOKUP step a lot. Hint, hint. That's me basically telling you it's practically the same step. So we didn't get her done in 20 minutes, but I think we got it close to 25. That's what to expect on the first test. It's worth 20% of your marks. Spend some time over the weekend before the test, whenever the semester may be. In the fall, you probably have Thanksgiving coming up. In the winter, it's probably the week right before break. Just, you know, sit down and take some time and get ready for it, and you'll be glad you did. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in week 7. We won't have a case or quiz due until the end of week 7, so you got a nice little breather now after you're done with the test. See ya.